live now. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just doing a little cutting and pasting.
That sounds familiar.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow, that's really beautiful. Does it actually? Oh, well, it does say below too. Mark Cargill is the
Yeah,
violin.
Mark.
Wow,
Yes.
he has gorgeous tone and intonation. Wow. That was
Yeah,
really,
Mark is actually well known in the industry. He is probably the most in demand violinist, session violinist. He's first violinist for the Oscars Orchestra, Grammys, Emmys. He's the violinist for Lady Gaga, Barbara Streisand. I mean, it just goes on and on. But you would never know it because he is such a humble person. He doesn't advertise himself. Well, he's known in the industry. People don't know what to call him, but he's one of these people. That I like associating with it. You would never know any of this because they don't promote themselves or broadcast any of that. But when you chat with them, and then when you work with them, and I've been fortunate to have had him to work on some of my projects whenever I can get him to do that. He is a wonderful person, and it's just a joy and privilege to know and work with him,
yeah.
and with you as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, on that note,
Yeah.
one second. Okay, and now I'm all set up. This is my guest, my longtime friend, Gerry Bryant. Hello!
Well,
Here. And yeah, did you want to say something?
yes, I have several things I wanted to say to your audience, and one thing is I wanted to say to you. I have a bone to pick with you, Cathy, because so we've known each other for such a long time, and so you told me that. So okay, Gerry, so you are now my 569th interview or whatever, and I thought, what's taking you so long? As long as we've known each other, and you're finally. This is such an insult. But anyway,
You know,
so,
actually, I do think about that when I tell people, like, they're 500 or they're five. I do actually
right.
think about that. It's like, oh, okay, it's not exactly, it's good for
Right.
me, but it's not good for.
But yeah, but I'm just teasing you. But I wanted to say one other thing, and this is a bit of a story, and I just wanted your audience to know my personal Cathy story and how I got to know you, Cathy, and what went on, and because I find it so. I've been in the business for a while as a musician and a lawyer, and I had heard of Cathy, but I never actually met her because obviously she's been doing her thing for a very, very long time. And so I see her name around, blah, 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 blah. And I always told myself that at some point I'm going to have to go to one of her gigs and check her out because obviously she's a very well-known, very excellent person. Seems like a great person to know. This is not a while ago. Okay. So finally, I saw that you were, Cathy, you were doing a gig. The place is no longer there. Maybe it had been like Chadney's or whatever. It's no place is no longer there. But anyway, so I go to your gig, and it must have been raining really hard or whatever. It was one of these gigs where, and I'm sure you, Cathy, and a lot of the people in your audience have experienced the same thing. There were basically almost no one in the audience at this club. So it was me and a singer friend of mine. So we were the, I think we may have been the only people in the club. So anyway, so Cathy, so you were performing, and I think it was Karen Hernandez was accompanying you at that particular time. And so I'm sitting there. Basically, there's no one else in the establishment. So I'm sitting, and Cathy is singing her heart out, and Karen is playing well, and it was all wonderful. I thought, oh, okay, Cathy is very good. But I'm the sort of person. So anyway, so then in the middle of Cathy's set, I go, excuse me, kind of interrupting her, and I'm sure she looked at me wondering, okay, what's it want? And so I said, well, hey, you're very, very good. This is all wonderful. Thank you very much. And you're doing these standards, and you're doing such a great job interpreting standards. Do you compose music? Do you have any original music? I would like to hear some original music. And I'm sure that so I'm not speaking for you, Cathy, but I'm sure that you're probably thinking, who is this guy? I mean, I have my set list. I'm trying to perform to my audience, and he wants to ask. So she said,
My audience of
she
two.
indulged. so, so she indulged me. She said, okay. So she said, okay, I have this song, okay, that I composed. And so she said, oh, I'll sing it. So she sang it. The song was My Friend, one of her compositions. Okay, so she performed it, and I'm sitting there in the audience, and I'm listening to this. I was floored. I mean, it just really hit me like a daggers. And so after she performed it, and so I told her, have you recorded that? Do you have any more kind of get a copy of it? Have you? I really love it so much, and so she said she recorded it or whatever. So I ultimately got a copy, and I also told her, if not then, but I told her that what I wanted to do is that I'm a pianist myself, and so what I wanted to do is whenever is take your song, record your song, my version, because I whenever I record anyone else's music, covers or whatever I completely reimagine it. But I definitely wanted to record my friend because it so touched me that I just had to record it. And I also told her, I don't know if I told you, Cathy, this then, but I also told you that I wanted to one day perhaps accompany you when you're singing and performing that song, and I'd love to accompany you doing that song. Okay. So I told her those two things then. So this was a while ago. None of that has happened. But after all these years. but here's where it gets even better though. So years later, so I'm on the board of this organization called California Lawyers for the Arts. What we do a variety of things for artists and for arts organizations, helping them with their careers from legal standpoint, business standpoint, all these various things. The organization also every year we do our awards show. We call it the Artistic License Awards, and it's a major event for California Lawyers for the Arts, which is a statewide organization. And what we do is we honor those individuals statewide and locally who have shown leadership and gone beyond the pale in contributing to the arts education, and to keep the arts alive and to make the arts accessible to disadvantaged communities and blah blah blah. And every year, this is a major event that we do, and we honor 5 or 6 people each year. And through the years, we have honored people from, and I'm not going to name drop at all, but we've honored national politicians who've helped make sure that arts funding wasn't cut by various presidents or whatever, to arts organizations, theater groups, all sorts who have made sure that people in poor, disadvantaged communities or that senior citizens have access to the theater. And a lot of people never have, and that sort of thing. And so these are all individuals whose contributions to the arts and to arts education to the community have just been amazing. So one year, I tell my board, I said, so okay, so we're discussing, who do we want to honor this year? And I said, one of the people we need to honor is Cathy. And I explained to them who she was and showed them everything about it. And they were just impressed and said, oh, yes, we definitely have to honor her. Okay. So she was one of our honorees. This was in 2011, as a matter of fact. Okay. So she's going to be one of our honorees. And generally speaking, at our awards event, which is true of just about all awards events, honorees, someone gets up to introduce the honoree and then present the honoree with their little trophy thing. Okay, so and that's what it is with all. This time though, I wanted to do something different. So instead of just having me stand up and then introduce Cathy and say a little bit about her and then have her come up on stage and accept the award, and that's all wonderful. I wanted to do something special. So I contacted my friend, who is actually Cathy's really, really good friend, singer Cheryl Barnes. And I said to Cheryl, I want to do something special in honoring Cathy at this event. I want to perform her song, My Friend, and have you, Cheryl, sing it, and I'll accompany you. And I don't want Cathy will have no idea that this was going to happen. Okay. So I get together with Cheryl and we work it out. And Cheryl's great. So at the event, so we honored several people, whatever. So then we were going to honor Cathy. So I get up to the podium and I tell people, I said, okay, I'm not going to say anything about Cathy. You can read about her bio and everything in a little program. I'm going to do this to introduce her. And I called Cheryl up on to the stage, and no one knew what was going on because this was just kind of unusual. And I said to people, I introduced Cheryl and I said, we're going to perform a tune written by Cathy, and I think it is just so appropriate for this event, for me, and for everyone. It is called My Friend. So I sit down at the piano, and Cheryl sings, and we sing. And so I have no idea exactly if how Cathy reacted to this, but I will say that everyone else in the audience, there was not a dry eye in the audience. It was
Oh,
just so wonderful. And so, anyway, so I'm so pleased to have been able to do that. And so that's my Cathy story.
oh. Thank you very much. And that was, yeah, that was a really special time, and something that I won't forget. It's a great memory, and it's lovely when an organization such as that, takes time and creates an acknowledgement. It's really nice. So thank you for doing that, Gerry.
Oh, absolutely. And I have to say to everyone, everyone already knows this, but in the same way that the late great James Brown used to be called the hardest working man in show business, I have to give Cathy the nickname the hardest working person in jazz because I mean of all the things that you do, Cathy, when do you have time? I mean, you do so many different things, and that's what I love, admire, and respect about you. I mean, you just do so many things in support of people of all stripes in the jazz community and around that I just have to give you your props. And I know this is your hang, and I'm the person that's being interviewed, but I just have to give you your props. So there you go.
Thank you, my darling. And interestingly enough, I have been listening to that record that that song is from for I've been perusing all my stuff, and
Mhm.
Secret Life is the record that that was from. And I decided, I want to perform this music. So this week on Thursday, I'm performing all of the music from the album, which includes My Friend.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it should
And
be,
you're performing where this is live or what?
yes, at Kulak's Woodshed in North
Oh,
Hollywood.
cool X. All right. Okay.
So yeah, and it's going to be fun. I mean, I've performed a few of the songs over the years. Probably My Friend and 20 Men Waiting. That's big, always a big hit. And,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, it should be really interesting. It's going to be Todd Hunter on piano and Brad Rebuchin on guitar, John Leftwich on bass, and Chris Wabich on drums. So it's going to be fun because I'm in such a different frame of mind. I mean, we'll still do the songs and the arrangements, but we'll probably stretch it out. That's what I'm expecting.
Right, right. Oh, good for you. I won't be able to attend, but good for you. And I'm there in spirit.
Okay, and if you are near a computer, you can actually stream it.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, because Kulaks, yeah, I've done
Yeah,
that before.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for the acknowledgement and you know, actually I had forgotten how we really met. So I wonder if that was Ca del Sol, you know.
N no, I think well, it could have been. But what's in Burbank? It's now a restaurant now. I've been there for lunch with KCT several years, but it used to be
Chadney's.
Chadney's. I think that was where I was that I saw you.
It could have been. I was just thinking Ca del Sol because there were a lot of nights that nobody was there except one or two
Okay.
people. So, but Chadney, it could have been Chadney's though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks, Gerry. And so Gerry is one of those people who's really good at a quote unquote real job, and then is a great musician. So he's a lawyer, and as he said, the California lawyers, sorry,
Lawyers for the Arts. Right.
California Lawyers for the Arts. He's a founding member, right?
No, I was chairman of the board for many years. I'm still on the board, but right now not a founding member, but it's an organization. I'm on the board.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
how old is that organization?
Oh gosh, I should know this off the top of my head. 40 years, maybe,
Really?
or yeah, I think it was founded in 1970 something by several individuals, including Alma Robinson, who's current executive director, who's been there. We honored her for her like 40 years of service or something. But yeah, it's been there for a while, and it literally is it's an organization that, as I said, empowers and educates artists and arts organizations of all sorts. And the organization itself has done some amazing things. I mean, it gives seminars, it has lawyer referral service, and it has alternative dispute resolution services. It does so many different things to empower artists, and it's something that I through my adult life, I've encouraged artists of all sorts to if not become a member, which is because all of the services are high quality and inexpensive because it's a nonprofit organization and we get grants from various
No,
things. And so
I
everyone that's involved, they're all
I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I kind of fell off the line with you guys. I mean, I guess I could join like a newsletter thing, right?
yes, you should get our monthly newsletters because it's chock full of really excellent information. I'm surprised that one of the things I have to check with especially all of the folks that we have honored through the years, we need to make sure that they're getting all of our information ever since. And we've been a bit remiss with that, I guess, in some aspects. So yes, you should have been in contact. And every time we do another event, we just did our last event this past June in Sacramento, honoring local folks in Sacramento and the mayor of Sacramento, who used to be, oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name, but he used to be also in our state senate. Anyway, but and so you, Cathy, should have gotten information about that and been invited to go to, I mean, all sorts of things through the years. I guess you haven't, but I'll make sure that that gets corrected.
I just signed up again. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm surprised that I fell off. Well, I'm not 100% surprised. I mean, there's just so many, so many things that you can attach yourself to and look at, and
Right.
I can't tell you how many lists I have.
Believe me, I understand. I'm the same way. I mean, you can't read all these things,
Yeah.
but and you're active and involved in so many different things that you can only do so much. But
And then, actually, that's a kind of a good question, a good lead into a question. Like for me, I go over and over and over again trying to set myself up with uh, daily routines or routines that will let me accomplish certain things that have been on this, you know, 14-page list that I have, that
yeah.
that I can accomplish, and I mean, you must be super busy. I know every time I call you, you're really busy being a lawyer for KCT.
But KCT PBS, so the Southern California's PBS station.
Yeah. And then you're a musician and obviously an accomplished, beautiful, wonderful musician. And so that's an awful lot to do. And is there a way that you arrange your time so that you can cover everything, or do you do it just as need arises?
Well, people in the same way that I would ask you this, but I know people always ask me, Gerry, where do you find the time to do everything that you do? And I tell them, quite frankly, two things. One is I have no kids, so you know how kids take up all of your time and responsibility. So that eliminates that. And the second thing, I just tell people I don't sleep. So there you go.
Wow. And is that serious?
Um,
Like
and,
working?
and that's it. I mean, I probably go to sleep around 1 a.m. each morning, maybe. And I get up at 7
Yeah.
um, every day. That's just the way it is. Because well, as you know, Kathy, and as we're talking about, there just isn't enough time in the day to
Yeah.
do everything that you want to do. So you just have to. I don't believe in cutting corners with anything that I do. I mean, on a professional, personal basis. So I am deeply committed and involved with the things that I do. So that having been said, that means that I have to cut a corner somewhere else, and that means overnight sleeping. So
Yeah.
I go to sleep at 1 o'clock, 1:30 to every morning, and wake up at 7 and start the day.
And do you like it?
I thoroughly enjoy what I do. Things are, I will say, and for everyone that knows me, they know this story, but I will say the story. So, I started playing the piano as a concert pianist when I was 12. And that's what I intended to do for my career. I never intended to do what I do now. And the thing about life,
Yeah.
as we all know, all sorts of different directions on or even thought about as you go through the years. So so here I am, a 12, 13-year-old taking piano lessons, classical music. Classical music spoke to me as it still does today. So I was pursuing that, I intended to be a concert pianist. And I was at a young age, I was actually sort of, some people called me a prodigy or whatever. So I was playing classical music and doing recitals and entering piano competitions and all that. Um, and then, but along the way, I told myself that, okay, I know this is what I was going to be doing, but I also knew that artists in general, of all stripes, not only musicians, but artists, they may be excellent at what they do creatively, but they have no concept of the business of their art. And a lot of artists get ripped off because they've done these contracts, whatever. And I, as a kid, I was smart enough to know that I didn't want to be someone that got ripped off with what I do because I didn't understand what went on in the business. So I told myself, okay, just to make sure that I don't get ripped off, I'm going to become a lawyer, learn the business, but I'm only intended to be a lawyer for myself as a musician in the business. I never intended to be a lawyer for anyone else. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't get ripped off. So what I then did was, and this is total overkill, and this is not something I recommend that other people do. I tell people, don't try this at home because you don't have to do any of this. So I decided, okay, so I went to an elite prep school. I went to Harvard. I went and got a law degree. I got an MBA. Went out and got started working immediately for a large, very prestigious entertainment law firm to learn the business. All the while I'm doing my music, but I wanted to have this knowledge so that whatever comes up, I could handle my own legal affairs. I have the knowledge. I wasn't going to be ripped off, not a problem. The issue is, well, first of all, I didn't need to go through all of that. That's total overkill. I don't recommend anyone do any of everything that I did. All you really need to do is surround yourself with people who are extremely knowledgeable on your team, lawyer,
Yeah.
agent, manager, whatever, who are extremely knowledgeable in what they do, and who are trusting that you can trust them. And once you have that, that's all you need. You don't need to know all this sort of stuff or go through and get all these various degrees that I got and do all of this craziness, which really, so I do all that. And in the process of doing that, it turns out that actually I was kind of smart as a kid to make that choice to become a lawyer. I've lost all of my intelligence and smartness since then, but it was kind of smart then because as a musician who does classical music and some jazz, I am never going to make Beyonce or Taylor Swift money. That's just the way it is. So one would need to have another skill, another that is a resource generator to make sure that you have food on your table or whatever. So by being a lawyer, it turns out, so then I have, and Cathy, as you know, so I've been a lawyer for all sorts of musicians, artists, arts organizations, theater groups, art galleries, on and on and on. I'm on the board of these arts organizations, all this sort of stuff, none of which did I ever intend to do, even thought about. But I've done all of this. And I'm pleased that I've done all this. And I'm pleased that I've been able to help so many others. But I never intended to do any of this. So when you ask me, Cathy, do I enjoy what I do? I enjoy what I do. But right now, as we speak, so I'm the lawyer for PBS SoCal, the PBS station here in Los Angeles. And whilst on the one hand, I mean, it's great, and I do a very good job. You know, they admire, respect, and love me for what I do and all of that. But it's a lot of work, and it takes a whole lot of my time. And so then, how do I then spend the time doing all the other things, and especially music, which is what defines me and is what I've been doing since I was 12 on a high level? How do I do that? It's difficult, but I thoroughly enjoy everything that I do, and I've been very, very fortunate and blessed, one, to be able to do certain things extremely well, and then secondly, to be surrounded by other individuals who are just extremely good at what they do anyway. So what they do, the people that work with me, from my musicians in my group and other musicians, or my directors, video directors and film directors and artists that work with me, they are all so amazing that I tell people all the time that I give them all the credit. They make me look and sound good.
Yeah.
So I just let them run with it, and sit back and ride their coattails. And so that's what I've been doing all my life, riding other people's coattails.
Well, that's smart.
Yeah.
You know, that's really a smart thing. Um, yeah, I definitely want to. I know you want to talk about music a lot, and we'll talk about music a lot. I do have a friend here, and maybe this is a friend of yours, Callie O'Brien.
I
No,
don't know Callie. No.
okay, hi, Callie, and Beverly Church Hogan. Hi, sweetheart. And Taylor Hatch and Nora Paradiso. Taylor Hatch is a music student at North Texas State. He's a guitarist, and he interviews people actually a lot for the school. And he has a few questions. We'll kind of
Sure.
intersperse them. But I always like this kind of question that he poses. If you could change anything about the way the music industry is right now, what would you like to change and why?
Oh, wow.
They always say that, Taylor. They always say that. Oh, wow. It's a deep question, you know.
um,
You can just skim the surface if you want.
yeah, yeah. Let me just say, it would be great if there were more individuals, in the executive level, and of the power brokers that really, that maybe come from strictly a music background and are very, very supportive of musicians and have that mindset first, as opposed to the mindset of making sure that your stockholders get their proper revenue. Now, that goes against what business people are supposed to be doing in their positions, by having that. But if that mindset could shift slightly, then that would probably make a lot of the issues facing musicians, including, well, as I'm sure all musicians are aware of, the fact that we as musicians make zero money from streaming,
Yeah.
basically.
Yes, that's
Um, and and so there are attempts, there are various people I mentioned. I'm from Taylor Swift, I mean,
yeah.
to all kinds of individual, Bruce Springsteen, who are trying to get that to change.
Yeah.
I believe that if these companies, in the music industry and in other industries, if they really had much more of a bent towards assisting the artists as opposed to looking at their own bottom line, that would help.
I love
Um,
that.
that's a large thing, to think about and to try to get to move, but I think that would help.
Thank you. That's really a good answer. Well, since he has a lot of questions kind of similar to that, so I'm gonna jump over to music for a minute and then we'll go back to a question of his. But so how did you get into jazz?
Um, Funny story. I'm full of stories. So, but a precursor to that. So I'm literally playing classical music. That's my love. That's what I do. Okay. And my piano teacher back then in Cleveland, Ohio, my piano teacher, Ethel Morton, she was a black woman. I mentioned that specific for a reason. But she was extremely talented. She played classical music at the highest level. She played piano in churches, black churches in Cleveland, gospel music. She did everything. But for the fact that, and she was well known locally as a piano teacher. as a music teacher, but for the fact that in her generation, and she being a Black woman, she should have had national
Ah,
recognition for her talents. But it is what I mean. I realized that later on. It is what it is. But anyway, so here I am. And so I'm taking these lessons from her, and I'm learning classical music, which I just love. That's all. But what she wanted me to do, she wanted me to expand my repertoire. She wanted me to also learn to improvise, play some gospel, play some jazz, and all that. So she was trying to teach me that. I couldn't do that at all. I mean, it just was not coming to me at all. And so she, so she, like all my close friends, she would just tease me. She would say, Gerry, now come on. You can't play this, you can't improvise, you can't play this other sort of music. And you're Black. It's just like saying to a Black kid that you can't dance. And so Gerry, you can't improvise. And I couldn't. And I felt embarrassed. I could all I could do was play pencil. So she said, okay. So she she ignored it. And so fast forward, and I'll get back to that in a second. Fast forward, now here we are, and I'm doing all these things, including incorporating jazz and all these recordings I'm doing and all that. She's not alive now. She would be so proud of me now. And I'm sure that she would say, I told you so. I tried to get that going a long time ago, but you finally did this. I'm glad you finally listened to me. I'm sure she would say that. But so, but to answer your question, Cathy, so I'm an aspiring concert pianist. That's what I'm doing. Um, and although all through the years of just playing classical music, I would listen to, I mean, everything, from the Motown sound, the Beatles, rock, R&B, and some jazz, but I couldn't play it, and that's not what I was focusing on to do musically, because that's not my thing. I'm totally into the romantic classical composer Chopin, Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff. Okay. But then it got to a point that in listening to some of the jazz I was listening to as a young adult or as a late teenager, actually when I was in college, um, and I really said to myself, well, that music speaks to me as well. I want to incorporate that in my repertoire. So even though I had had classical training and lessons all throughout my teen years, I didn't have any jazz training. I actually started playing jazz and learning jazz on my own. And I've literally first started back freshman year at Harvard. A guy who was the third year law student at Harvard came up to me and said, Gerry, I heard you were this bad keyboard player. I'm forming this jazz R&B spoken word group, and I want you to be a keyboard player. And I thought, okay, my reputation is preceding me, and I'm a good piano player, but I don't do any of that stuff. But I didn't tell him that. Oh, okay, fine. So I joined this group, and we did all kinds of music and some jazz, and some of the other players. I mean, they were really, really players. I wasn't, but it was my being immersed in it that forced me to start learning. And then from there, I started, hanging out and going and sitting in clubs, jazz clubs, and which is way, and Cathy, and you know this, and Cathy, because you've kept up in the jam session, you've done all these things, you know what that's all about. And that's how jazz musicians historically learn their craft. They would cut their talents by they would put themselves out there and play with all the real cats who know how to play, and they might embarrass themselves, but that's the way you learn. And so that's kind of the way I learned. So I learned jazz and jazz elements and later in life, basically, as a young adult, and I'm still learning. And even to this day, I mean, I tell people ask me, so you play the piano? I say, yeah. And they ask me, well, people always say, oh, are you a jazz pianist? I actually do not consider myself a jazz pianist, even though I mean I have my own jazz group and we do all kinds of music, but because I clearly have gained jazz knowledge, jazz sensitivity, but just some jazz vocabulary and incorporate it into the things that I do. And Cathy's familiar with my music, and probably a lot of you that know me and are on this hang know my music and know that I incorporate classical and jazz. But I don't consider myself a jazz piano player because I consider myself to be a pretender. When people say, "Oh yes, you of course you play jazz," I said, "No." When I listen to, or I say that Keith Jarrett, Thelonious, I, Herbie, all of those are jazz piano players. No, 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 no. I am not anywhere close to that. So no, I don't consider myself to be a jazz piano player, but I have been fortunate enough to have learned and incorporated jazz sensibilities and sensitivities in what I do.
Yeah.
So it makes what I do, my music, I like to think, a lot richer because
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. This is a good segue to listen to something. So, can we listen to a jazz
Oh,
song?
uh, j- um, what would I have on my YouTube channel? That's jazz. Well, maybe one of the videos of my jazz group.
Uh, Jerry. Um, oh,
Oh,
I,
yeah, I mean, you could just listen to. I mean, there, yeah, all of my music is there on my website.
or I was going to go to YouTube. I just didn't.
Yeah, so the
Um, so here, I don't know where I went. Whoops.
James Taylor.
Oh, this is from Night Music, which was it says 7 years ago, but it was more like came out. I was married to my first husband, so it might have been 30 years ago.
Hmm.
This David Sanborn had this show on. It was kind of like an
Oh, yes. Oh, great
unproduction.
show.
This was
Yes.
one of the first ones. Milton Nascimento and James Taylor. My husband and I sat there weeping. Anyway, it was great.
Um,
So anyway,
uh,
I highly recommend finding that, you guys. Whoops, Bryant. Okay, so I'm going to your. Okay, does this?
okay, yeah. Flip through. We'll take one of the of my jazz group at Kulak's actually. You click on, yeah, you want to go further.
Down?
Um,
No, there's no
well,
down.
I know I'm at so on that line of, yeah, click that to move over to yeah, click again. I want to do,
On a
oh,
cooler.
where is it? Yeah, I want to, which one is the best one? Yes, the one that says PocketWatch, what could have been.
Okay,
Uh,
cool. Great.
this was my group at Kulak's.
Yeah, I like that. That was great.
I have to say another story actually about my music. If I have to indulge people. So this is the first time I've watched that or listened to that in probably years since we actually first did it. So here's the thing with me. I never ever listen to anything that I've recorded or done because I can't. I am one of these people like a lot of actually actors. Actors will tell you the same thing. They will never watch movies or things that they've done. They just can't see it. With me, with all the music that I've done, all of it, I can never listen to it once I've done because all I hear is things that I would have wanted to have done differently. It's like, oh no, that's a mistake. Oh no, that's horrible, or whatever. So for me, listening to any of my music that I've done is an excruciating experience. I never do. Okay, so I have on that. And my close friends and my musician, because they all say to me, Gerry, you need some therapy. You need to get over that. But anyway, so
Or a
but so but
producer.
right. But so I have two quick stories and this is shows you exactly the way I am. One is my barber. Well, no, I've lost a lot of my hair since then. But so my barber was a really interesting guy. First time I had gone to his barber shop, and he's someone very eclectic, like me, and probably Kathy, like a lot of you, plays all kinds of music. So I'd be sitting in the chair and see he might play, let's say he might play Miles Davis. He'll follow that up with maybe a Led Zeppelin. He'll follow that up with Bach's Brandenburg Concerto or something like. I mean, he just literally goes all. And so that's what I really like about him. So one day, so I'm sitting there, and so he's playing some music, and I like everything he does. And so I'm listening to it, and I think I say, oh, there's some jazz, some like melodic, cool jazz. I said, "Oh, that's really cool. So who is that?" And so he looks at me and he says, "Gerry, that's you. That's your music." And I said, "Oh," and he was wondering how could I not know my own music? I never listened to it. And then from that point on, when he mentioned that, so then I'm thinking, so then I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, "Oh God, no." That I would have played this differently. I should have done this.
Oh
Okay, that's
God.
that story. But here's the even better one. So I'm at one Christmas season, holiday season. I'm invited to a party by a friend of mine in Malibu. Very nice little party. Okay, fine, a dinner party.
Yeah.
And so we're all the guests. We're all standing around. We're having wine and cheese before dinner or whatever. And there's holiday music playing. And at one point there was a piano holiday music playing. And so I'm listening to it as we're chatting and sipping our wine. And I'm listening to this music that's playing in the stereo in the background. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, that is really cool. This is Holly, this is a piano player. I was thinking, oh gosh, I wish I could play the piano like that. So many rich ideas and what they were doing, all this sort of stuff. And so then at one point, the host says, oh, hey, everybody, by the way, that music that you're hearing, that's Gerry. That's Gerry's music. Once she said, and everyone said, "Oh wow, that's wonderful." Once she said that, to me, it was like, "Oh God!" And so it ruined the rest of my evening because all I heard then was I'm listening to, "Oh no, I should have done that differently. Oh
Oh,
no, that was a mistake." And I'm going through, and so I'm going through all this in my head. Meanwhile, so I'm supposed to be conversing with everyone there and all that. But my brain is totally into, oh God, this music is no, I can't say it ruined my evening.
oh.
So, and I need therapy, I know. So all of my close friends know if and Kathy, you should know this, and all of the people in your audience, they should know that if you ever invite me to your home, don't ever think about playing my music. It will ruin it for me. I never listen to it. So when you just played the piece from my jazz group, I can't remember the last time I watched that, or and it was sitting here. I mean, I had to close my eyes and not listen, thinking the same thing. I'm thinking, oh God.
Well, I know what you mean. I mean, of course. And I mean, one lesson that I had, which was really great, was being on the road in Japan with my partner, the Phil Strange, who was a great piano player. We did like night after night after night for like a month, a whole month, that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
we're on the road, and of course, in between our sets, they play our record, right? And so we're literally listening to the exact same songs during, because they start at the beginning of the CD, right? And so one night, we're sitting there and we're listening and we're like, oh my God, that sounds so terrible. What do we do? Then, literally, the next night, we're like, that sounds pretty good, actually. It's really nice. The next night, so we would go back and forth. And that was actually a great lesson to learn because it just showed me that it was like, you know, it's not one thing and only one thing. And of course, to people listening, somebody's going to like what you're doing and somebody's not.
True.
We know that as artists. So, but lessons like that, I think, are really valuable to put your mind in a good perspective. And also, I do say to you, you know, use a producer, somebody you actually admire and who you think understands the music, and so can say, yeah, right there, let's do that section again. And then perhaps you would end up with something that you do like better.
Yeah, no, I hear you totally. No, no, everyone I work with, they're all excellent and superb, and I've done all kinds of takes and different things. That's not the issue with me. With me, it doesn't make a difference what I do, because I mean, people love my music, and they say all kinds of wonderful. That's great. For me, I am as a person
Yeah,
extremely critical and have the highest standards for myself, and it gets to an extreme, and
yeah,
so it doesn't make a difference literally what it is. Actually, and my just recently, my sax player, because actually I'm in the process of recording my group's next album. Which actually sounds great because all the guys, I mean, and gals that I'm having on it, they're all amazing. So what they do, and I just, as I say, I just basically I write some charts, but I say you run with it, you take it however you feel you need to. And so it sounds great. But
yeah.
as I was telling Tommy, my sax player, literally just recently, that whenever I hear uh, the masters. And I mentioned from Thelonious, Herbie, or my personal idols, two of whom passed just in the past year, Ramsey Lewis and Joe Sample. Those were the two people that probably, if you listen to my music, original music, jazz music, they have the most influence. But whenever I hear anything by them or see anything, I automatically think, and again, I need some serious therapy because I automatically think that, so then who am I pretending? What I'm doing is so sophomoric and kindergartenish in comparison to what they do. It's like what's the point? So I'm not even going to touch the piano anymore in life. I think that all the time. And so Tommy, wise Tommy that he is, person, he said, Gerry, after telling me I need therapy, he said, he said, Gerry, one of the lessons I learned as a saxophonist back in either elementary school or whenever was that his teacher told him, because he had, like a lot of people, have similar feelings about their playing and their doubts of being able to be a professional musician. And he said that basically God anointed certain individuals to just be the masters in what they do. And he mentioned, from Coltrane, he's a sax player, Coltrane, Sonny Stitt, others. And that he said so, and everybody else is just everybody else. So the fact that you can't sound like and be like the next John Coltrane or whatever, that does not deny you your artistry and your talents. It only means there are only certain individuals who achieve that stature, and that's just the way the universe has created it. But that's not to deny you. You needed to keep going because what you're doing is equally as valid. And basically, that's what he told me. That's what Tommy told me, and that's true. Um, um, and even but I have a funny story that relates to all of this that I'm sure that a lot of you can relate to. So I'm basically a classical pianist and I'm a concert pianist. When I was at Andover, I don't know if people in your audience know what Andover is. Phillips Andover Academy. It's a elite boarding school. So I'm there. Still taking classical piano lessons. As a matter of fact, Cathy, you probably know one of my classmates then at Andover, Bill Cunliffe, piano player, jazz
Oh,
piano player. Yeah. But anyway, but he went the jazz route. I'm totally classical. But anyway, so we are so I'm taking lessons. So then the orchestra leader at Andover came up to me and said, Gerry, for our next concert, I would love to do this piece by Grieg, his concerto in A minor. It's a well-known classical piece. And he would like to have me then perform with the orchestra playing that piece. I thought, okay. So I was, learning the music. And so then then the orchestra leader, he gave me an album. It was albums back then, no such thing as CDs, whatever. So he gave me the album of Arthur Rubinstein playing the concerto. And if any of you know anything about classical music, Arthur Rubinstein is one of the all-time historic great pianists. So this is a recording of him doing Grieg's Concerto in A minor. And so the orchestra director gave that album to me to listen to as inspiration for me to then learn the piece and then play it with the orchestra. Okay. I take it to my little dorm room. I sit there and I play it. I'm listening to this, and Arthur Rubinstein, he's just flying. He's doing all of these things, all these amazing things. And I'm sitting there listening to that thinking, they expect me to play this anywhere close? Oh, oh hell no. Hell no. Oh no. It instead of inspiring me, it had the exact opposite reaction. So I went up to the orchestra director. I said, I am not, thank you, but I am not doing this. No. And he was kind of because I'm not like that. I people that know me, I am, as you can see, I'm sort of gregarious, engaging, and I'm totally confident. I'm not intimidated by anything in life. But something like that, as a kid, I thought, oh no. So I never did that. So that is a precursor to kind of the way that I am today. If I happen to be, I was watching on YouTube my biggest idol, Keith Jarrett, concert, one of the concerts. Yeah, I watched, and I rarely do that because as soon as I'm watching, on the one hand, he and lots of others are my inspiration. But on the other hand, when I watch them and I listen to them, my immediate reaction is, who the hell am I kidding? I'm not playing the piano anymore. It's like, no, no, no. This is kid stuff that I'm doing. So, so then, Cathy, so then when you played that of my jazz group, I had this first time, and I couldn't
Now,
watch it.
did you have the same reaction to the first song, the classical piece with the violinist?
I've actually had to watch that recently because I had to. Cause I recently came up with the album of on Black classical composers, and I had to. So I actually had to watch that again. So I don't have that reaction as much, and also because, and here's the interesting thing. Um, when I'm with my group or when I was performing with another person, including Mark, the violinist, the focus is on them more so than it is on me. And so actually with my jazz group, even though I write all the music, I have all the cats, all the other guys play a lot and do solo. One, because they're so good. It's like you got to hear these guys. So there's less, and a lot of people that then see my jazz group are assuming that it's going to be dominated by the piano because it's my group and it's all my music, but it's not the case at all. I play very little in comparison in the group. And so with the group videos and the group music and with the video you just played of me and Mark playing, the focus isn't on me. So I don't have to sit there and kind of listen because the focus is more on the other players. So that is watching that video was fine. But watching my group, oh, that was fine watching my group, but I'm just letting you know I don't listen to or watch any of my music at all after it's been done.
Um, my friend Roland says, dovetailing on the changing the music industry question, Roland, I think this is like a political question, actually. If you ascend, if you ascended to a position of power within the industry, do you think you'd be allowed to affect the changes needed geared toward a more equitable industry?
Yeah, that's that
It's like
sort of a
if you
political
become
question.
president of the United States, can
Right,
you really do what
exactly.
you want to
See,
do?
on the one hand, any sort of change is glacial,
Yeah,
whether we're talking politics and all the things that have been going on in our country.
yeah,
And a lot of people say, well, we're a whole lot better than we used to be, and we've made progress or whatever. This progress, it's all glacial. Should have been done a while ago. So putting me or anyone like-minded in a position of power that helps, but expecting any sort of progress that is any more rapid than glacial is I mean, that's fool's gold. That's not going to happen. So,
yeah.
but that having been said, that should not discourage anyone like yourself who's asking the question or anyone from going out there and trying to effectuate change, whatever that change may be, whether it's change in the music industry or change in our society with all these things that are going on, whatever it is, even though it's so easy to get discouraged. And I'm very things going on in our society, going on in our years, and I get discouraged, frustrated, and even livid. Um, uh, but don't let that stop you from doing what you need to do to improve what you do and to effectuate change for those around you. Because I mean, it's too easy to fall into that prey. And I'll leave you with this one quote from Fannie Lou Hamer. And you probably don't know who it is, but Fannie Lou Hamer was a civil rights. She was a Black woman civil rights leader, sort of community leader during the civil rights era. And in the 60s, she has a very famous quote that someone took totally out of it. Was either Trump or someone else took totally out of context, but we won't go there. But her quote was, this is in the 60s, and she was speaking in front of I can't remember what convention, maybe the Democratic convention in the 60s, some large audience. And her quote is a famous quote: "I am sick and tired of being sick and tired." And what that quote basically says is, so, okay, you're all sick and tired. We're trying to do all these things, trying to have the liberties, the civil liberties we're supposed to have, and it hasn't happened. And I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So something's got to happen. So that's the whole point. So we're all sick and tired of being sick and tired. Don't let that discourage you. Keep going. And sometimes I'm very discouraged, but just keep going.
I agree with you, and that actually leads into a lot of, for me, that leads into a lot of my belief system on why I'm here, what is here.
Mhm.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? What,
Yeah. Yeah.
what is really life? I mean, I'm kind of more the quantum believer, that what I'm experiencing right now is reality and nothing else at this moment is reality. It's just what I'm
Mhm.
experiencing and that I'm responsible for this reality, like as I create it. So, and I've always agreed with that point of view that you just said. It's like, when I started Olak's bar in the back, Bar Fedora.
Mhm. Mhm.
I said bar fedora instead of bar fedora. So when I started that, I asked a few musicians what they thought, and they said things like, "Oh, nobody's going to pay $7 for parking," stuff like that, or pay a cover. Or I was like, "No, no, that's just stupid." It's like jazz has just as much right to exist and demand a little payment as rock and roll. I mean, you'd pay $300 for a ticket to see somebody. Come on. So and that so I did that for 2.5 years. So that was good. Um, so yeah, I think you do. That's why I think I appear busy because I have that list of all these different ideas, and sometimes there'll be a space open that this idea will float in, and I can do it, and I want to do it, and so I do it. And I don't know why, but people seem to be less experienced at that, or kind of unable to do it, or don't recognize that for themselves. And to me, it's like getting out of bed. It's nothing special. It just that's how existence goes. And it's like, oh,
Mhm.
I think I'll grab that one and work on that one. It's interesting. Uh, so, but yeah, um, I agree with you. It's just, do what you can. That's all. That's all that's can be expected of you. If you have a good idea, if you want to go teach some kids, you don't have to, go through a whole rigmarole. Just contact the school and say, hey, I want to do a little class for kids and see if they want to come and, I can give them something, whatever it is, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I tell people on a related note, I tell people never count yourself out. if you have an idea to do so, oh, you want to apply to something or whatever, you think, no, I'm not going to apply to that because they're not going to accept me or whatever. Never reject yourself. Let someone else reject. If you don't apply, then you would never have got where you're going to go anyway. So other people make do whatever they're going to do, which you don't have any control over.
Right. Um, I do have another Taylor question. Let's see. Well, what would you say is the most challenging thing about copyright and or legal issues with artists trying to preserve their music?
Um, well, first of all, you always want to copyright whatever you do immediately, period. And any stories you may have heard along the line, although I haven't heard this much of this recently in the last several years about you don't have to actually copyright. You can actually just mail something to yourself or
Right.
whatever. It just totally disavow that knowledge. Totally.
Yeah.
You have to copyright for a variety of reasons. One is because that those any other sort of thing doesn't work, and has its own failures. But most importantly about copyright is that when you do register for copyright, that then grants you so many additional remedies, tools, and rights that you wouldn't have if you hadn't registered, including if it turns out that whatever your composition, someone goes off and uses your composition. Well, yeah, let's just say that you made a recording of one of your compositions. You sent it off to a friend of yours. You hadn't copyrighted it or anything yet, but you sent it off to a very good friend that you trust. Sent it off. Next thing you know, down the line, say your music is being used somewhere or whatever, and someone else, so you have a copyright infringement claim. The problem, though, if you hadn't registered for copyright, what registering for copyright does is that, among other things, it automatically gives you a certain number of monetary damages, even if you couldn't prove exactly how much money the other person made that is rightfully yours. That then makes it so such that so if someone goes out and uses your music and they've done whatever they've done, you know that if you then sue them, you may not be able to find out. They may not have made any money, but you know that by statute, you are going to get a certain amount of money because of the copyright infringement. And it's because of that rule with the statute, that's the only way you're going to get a lawyer to represent you to handle the copyright infringement suit. Because if you didn't register for copyright, which means that under the statute, you are guaranteed of getting a certain number of damages, even if you don't know how much money the other party has made. A lawyer will then take on that case because the lawyer then knows that he or she will be able to get paid their fees because there are automatic damages. But
Yeah.
if you didn't apply for copyright, and it's really very simple. What is it now? It's like maybe $20, $25. I forget. But you need to do that automatically before you do anything. The copyright application will ask, has your tune been published? As a matter of fact, I just had a gentleman ask me this question that I've been working with for a while, and he's applying for copyright for his film that he's doing. Publishing, actually, anytime you allow your song content, whatever it is, to be accessed by or distributed by anyone or any entity, whether it's a publishing company, record company, movie company, that you have then published your content. That means that so you better, before you publish your content or distribute it to anyone, or you send me a copy of whatever it is you're writing, before you do any of that, even though, okay, I'm going to send this to Gerry, he's a lawyer, lawyers are bound by these confidential, all this sort of stuff, and he's very trusting, and I've been talking to Gerry, all that. Copyright it, because you just never know. And then that allows you to be able to pursue any sort of infringement of your song. And copywriting is with the federal copyright, the patent and trademark copyright office, USPTO. It's very simple. So
Yeah.
be sure to do that.
Yeah.
Always.
It's a little costly if you're writing a lot, but I mean,
But well, it's not as costly as you think because you can actually copyright a bunch of them. Like say if you're doing an album of all original, which is what actually I literally just did this from my album with the group that I'm recording
Yeah.
of all my music. You can copyright the album, which includes all of the music in the album. So we're talking about 10 tunes or whatever like that for a certain fee rather than do it individually and pay $25 for each song. So there's a way of look. You have to read it, but yeah, you can do that.
Used to do, or I had done it a long time ago, like a group of, call it a suite and put 5 songs in it, but then it was a suite. It wasn't each individual song. So there was a little confusion on was that really, you know, workable, you know.
Yes, there's confusion about that, but actually, technically, when it comes down to it, if someone were to infringe on your copyright on one of those tunes, you still have had it registered and can pursue all of the remedies that I just mentioned that way.
Okay. Yeah,
So, yeah.
interesting to know. Yeah. I thought that was just like an old thing that was passé too.
Yeah, I think, as a matter of fact, I think the Copyright Office has then changed that and made it, as I've just said to you, so that it doesn't, because they've understood through the years. I should check this to be sure, so they don't hold me to this. But yeah, they've understood through the years that how expensive that can be, and they wanted to make sure that you still had the protections. But they also wanted to make sure that people didn't just lump in a whole group of tunes together that weren't, say, part of a project, but they just wanted to avoid
Yeah.
having to pay it separately. But if it is part of, excuse me, like a specific project or whatever, then you can do that and you will
Yeah.
have all the protections needed.
Ah, cool. Um, I have to do some of that work. Yeah. I think I've gone by the wayside. I've
Yeah,
gone
well,
by the
Kathy,
wayside.
be sure to copyright before you send it to anyone, anywhere, in any manner. Copyright.
Okay, what's the biggest piece of advice someone gave you about the music industry in general, and how did it affect you?
Um, these are very good questions.
It was so long ago, right?
Right, exactly. Um,
Yeah, this is a Taylor question too.
okay. Taylor, you are very cerebral and I like that. Um, actually, well, I probably have two answers to that. One is an amusing one, and well, the other is just don't trust anyone. Period. It doesn't matter who it is. Always get whatever it is in writing. And I say that, and I have a very amusing story I'll share in a moment
Yeah,
about that in particular. But the whole point is not to trust anything, and don't, even if you think something is going to happen and it just looks like, oh, everything is in place, don't rely on it until the ink is dry and money is in the bank. Anything short of that, it doesn't make a difference what the circumstances are. Never rely on. And I will say, and I will get back to my funny story about that, personal story. But the other thing that was actually told to me um, about the music industry and the advice that I was given, which I thought was very, very amusing at the time. But as I told you, so here I am. I'm a musician. I decided I wanted to be a lawyer and my own lawyer for myself. But in so doing, I wanted to make sure that I really learned the business well. And I did everything at the highest level. So, I got these went to Harvard, got a law degree, got an MBA, got out of law school, immediately started working for the most prestigious law firm. Their music department was considered the most prestigious in the country. I'm not going to mention any names or anything. But so I'm working for this firm, and I was the first Black attorney. It was basically primarily Jewish attorneys and others, but I was the first Black attorney. Anyway, so when I was being interviewed before actually going for the job, so I was interviewed with a bunch of other lawyers in the firm, and so they were all impressed with me. Blah blah blah. Okay, that's wonderful. But they said, okay, but we want to make sure. that you also get to speak to this gentleman, who shall go nameless, who is the senior partner at this law firm. So he in the industry, I mean, he's top dog. And they told me, said Gerry, he never interviews anyone, that's coming in, literally, as an intern or first year like lawyer or whatever. He's too busy. He just won't have it. But they all said, but we want you to interview. We really would like you to meet him if you can before the end of the day. I said, okay. So at the end of the day, they were able to arrange for me to meet with this gentleman. Actually, he's passed away. I could say his name, but I won't. So I go into his office, and so I guess a lot of you in this audience don't are familiar with Los Angeles, but we're talking Century City, big high rise, and so he's got this huge corner office, and walk in his office is all in purple. I mean, because
Wow.
this is a big top dog guy. All right. So I walk in, I sit down. So he turns around, he looks at me, and he says, Gerry, you're black. He's Jewish. So he just said, he looks and he says, you're black. And I looked and I said, yeah, I am. And he said, so let me tell you how you need to comport yourself and how you need to act in the music business as a black person. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, now, of course, on the one hand, I mean, he is who he is in the music business as a lawyer. So, I mean, he knows everything. But on the other hand, I was thinking,
You're not black.
well, yeah, exactly. So who are you to tell me how I need to act as a black person?
Yeah.
Starts talking about all these different things. I don't actually, so this doesn't answer your question, Taylor, specifically, because I don't remember exactly what I said. Because on the one hand, I thought that was extremely arrogant of him.
Yes.
Arrogant, and I won't say racist. I never point anything racist at all to anyone. I always look at other things. But I just thought, I mean, who was he to tell me? And when I walked out, I thought, anyway, I got hired by the firm and they all loved me and all that other sort of stuff. And I was their
And
first client.
what did he tell you?
He basically was telling me that I needed to make sure that I was respectful and that I didn't go out on a limb and because I'm new and I'm black and so people were going to look at me different ways. And I mean, some of it kind of makes sense, but on the other hand, it was the circumstances by which he's telling me this, and some of the other things that he said. I just thought, oh, okay, fine. I will heed your words because it turns out, I mean, they hired me on the spot. And so I'm going to do what's needed in your law firm. But, and there are a bunch of other things that happened down the way. But so anyway, so that doesn't directly answer your question about what was I told about the music industry, what advice. But my main advice is, as I said, is don't trust anyone, but make sure that you surround yourself ultimately with people that you do trust and who trust you and who believe in you. And that's when I'm talking about lawyers, managers, whatever, because there are a lot of, I mean, I hate to say, there are a lot of unscrupulous people out in the world, not just in the music business.
Yeah.
And so you just want to make sure you surround yourself with people that you know that you can trust and that are knowledgeable and that believe in you for as a person and what you do.
Yeah. Great. Great answer. I actually have a musical question for you too, from Mark. Did you ever look at your music and make a critique in order to keep your music fresh for the audience the next time you perform the song?
Um, Also, an excellent question. Yes, I always do that. Whenever I perform, and I actually haven't performed live during the pandemic. I'm just getting out performing for various reasons, obviously. And then there haven't been gigs, basically, as most musicians know, for the most part during the pandemic. But I will say that whenever I did perform, which basically was what I've been doing most of my life, um, at the next gig, I always made it a point of no matter what the gig was, even if the gig was a simple gig that I do all the time. Like I've had gigs through the years where I'm playing every week at a club, restaurant, or whatever. Or one thing, actually, I have to. I'll answer your question, but I have to say this because this is the most important. This is the for me, the most rewarding experience I've ever had as a musician. For many years, a couple times a week, I was volunteering and playing the piano for patients at UCLA Hospital. Um, and for me, even though I've played all kinds of different gigs, all sizes or whatever, of all
Yeah.
kinds of different people, for me, doing that work, playing for the patients at the hospital at UCLA a couple times each week, was so rewarding because all of the patients, well, as we all know, music is healing, just generally speaking, and to have music. And so when people would come into the hospital, patients and they don't want to be in the hospital because I mean, you don't want to be in the hospital, but then they would hear this music, this lovely piano music that I'd be playing, which is totally unexpected. And people would come up to me every time, almost every time I would perform. There would be something poignant, and just enduring what happened. And people would sometimes they come up to me crying and thanking me for playing all this.
Yeah.
The reason I say all that, I have a couple funny stories I can tell you about some of those performances. But I say that because even though I was doing that and some of the other gigs that I did when I would be playing every week or wherever, and so you're doing something consistently, sort of the same thing. I never took it for granted. I never took any gig for granted, even if I was playing like the gig that I saw, Cathy, that you did, that I first saw you in, where there's only one person, well, two people in the audience, me. I'm sure you probably the same thing. You give it your all. Doesn't matter if it's one person, two people, or 50,000 people. And so each gig, when I do another gig, even if it's the same gig, I would change my repertoire. I would change my approach because I wanted to keep it alive, even if the person, the next time I did that same gig, even if they were different people, that didn't make a difference because I wanted to make sure maybe there might have been someone similar, but even if there weren't, I make it a point of all the music that I would play. I mean, there are certain things that I always do because I happen to love the music and it works, but I always make it a point to never take what I do for granted and just do things by rote.
Yeah.
So then I go in and I've already thought about certain music and maybe doing some other music differently. I just always think that no matter.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about your new project. I think it's really interesting.
Okay, which one? I say which one only because one was just released, and
Is
that
it
was my latest solo piano project.
the black classical?
Oh, that one. Okay. Yeah, oh, that was released last January, a year ago.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so what that is, that's actually something I'm pleased with, um, because of why I'm doing it when I'm doing.
Yeah.
Uh, so here I am. I'm a classical musician, classical pianist, and going through the years, I had never heard of. There are so many Black classical music composers historically in our country who are amazing, who I had never heard of, and I'm sure that most of you in the audience and most of America had never heard of because, unfortunately, with our country, with respect to a lot of things, a lot of blacks, browns, Native Americans, don't get credit recognition or whatever historically, and we all know this. So we're not going there. That's a conversation. But here I am. All I'm doing is I'm classical music, and I'm black.
Yeah.
I had never heard of a lot of people, some names I'd come across, and I thought, wow. So then I started looking into it. And then I discovered a whole bunch of musicians, including actually who's probably the very first Black American classical music composer, Blind Tom Wiggins, who was a slave. So he was born, I mean, so he's living during the slave period. Apparently, and his story, I heard this story from an article in the New York Times, and I found out about him. I thought, wow, an amazing story. So he's a slave now. Now, slaves, and he was blind. And so, basically a young kid, teenager, so he's blind. So he basically he's of no use to slave masters. I mean, you're blind, you're a slave, you're blind. Well, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Okay, so, but apparently he was I don't forget the medical term, but for someone who has an immense talent, is it autism where you can have an immense talent or
Or
savant?
savant, yeah, some.
Savant, that's it. He was apparently a savant because he would sit down. I don't know, he was able to sit down at some old piano, I guess, on the plantation or whatever, and he would just play all kinds of things and compose all kinds of things. And he's this young blind slave. So the slave master apparently noticed that and said, wow, this is amazing. I can make some money off this guy. So the slave master takes Blind Tom on a European tour.
Wow.
Now, this is during slavery times now. Takes him on a European tour. And for about 2 years, apparently during this, I found this out in the New York Times article. For about during the tour, Blind Tom was a big sensation. Now, I understand, I mean, this European tour, this was on a boat across the pond. And this wasn't planes, wasn't luxurious hotels and all that. But so he's on a 2 year tour with the slave master. He's a big hit. Apparently, he makes during that 2 years the equivalent in today's time of about $1 million.
Wait,
He,
blind.
Blind Tom, doesn't see any of that,
Oh, I
of
was going to
course.
say, was it, did it go?
Oh no, it's his no, it's his slave master.
Yeah.
So Blind Tom gets none of this. But the point is, at some point, I think when he was in Europe, he actually they made recordings. No, they never did make recordings, but they actually made some print music of some of the things that Blind Tom, had written. So anyway, I found out about him, and so I looked into his music, and someone else had actually already recorded an album. I said, wow! And so he was the first Black classical music composer probably in the United States. But then there have been others. And so there's probably one gentleman that I had heard of, William Grant Still,
Hmm.
who's a well-known Black music. He's probably, if you were to ask anyone who's not familiar with the classical Black classical composers, they may have heard that name. Okay,
Yeah.
but it turns out, so then once I started doing my research, I started finding out about more and more of these amazing artists. And the one who I just personally have now put in my pantheon of my favorite composers and composers whose music I always include some tracks of on each of my albums. I mean, Chopin is number one for everyone. I mean, for me, top of the hill. Then the others are all Romantic era composers, white males. Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky, Debussy. I mean, I can run down the list. Okay, so that's my pantheon, my Mount Rushmore. Period. I discovered this woman, Florence Price, and we played one of her pieces with Mark on violin at the beginning here. I discover her music, and I am just in the same way that I felt with my friend, your song, Cathy. I was just floored. I thought, oh, and so to this day, I now put Florence in the same category as Chopin in my, and I would love for her to be considered in the same way that all of these excellent, great white male composers, Chopin, Beethoven, I mean, Mozart, name it, they're all thought of and by their last names. You just say Beethoven, people, oh, yeah, Beethoven, Mozart. I would like Florence Price to ultimately get to that level and have people respect her and know her in the same way. Now, mind you, as we talked about earlier, change is glacial. So when we will be able to just go to a concert, look at the program, and we'll see, Mozart, blah, 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 Price, not Florence Price, but Price included. That is go. Anyway, so with that in mind, I told myself, bless you, I told myself that what I want to do is I want to do a series of albums to help contribute to getting recognition, more recognition to these Black classical composers who have been unrecognized and neglected historically. Okay. Um, so I started working on this album, the series. The first album is called The Composers. As I'm doing this, I happen to attend a webinar seminar that was given. I saw that was being given by a radio station, classical music radio station in Oregon, with some speakers, and they were talking about classical music and the lack of well, now the term that's bantied around now is diversity in classical music, classical radio, and how classical radio has basically neglected Black classical composers historically. And this radio station and a couple of speakers, so they were part of the movement to try to change that and get more recognition to some of these amazing Black composers. Okay, so I'm watching this and I'm thinking that, yeah, this is, so I'm trying to contribute to that effort myself in my little small way of doing this. So one of the speakers in this particular webinar was Bob Lord. He happens to be the president of and the owner of Parma Recordings, a record label. And so after that seminar, I wrote him and I told Bob who I was and I explained what I was doing. I said, I saw you guys, I saw you on this webinar and I applaud the efforts that all of you guys are doing. And I know it's glacial, but we need to take steps and you guys are really manning the forefront. So I'm glad that I let him know that, just so you know, I'm doing this project. I'm doing my project, which is the same thing. I'm doing a series of albums on Black music composers, and I'm learning more about them. So anyway, one thing led to another. I spoke and we went back and forth, back and forth. We really hit it off. He loved music. He loved my ideas. So my album, which is called, well, the first volume called The Composers. And as you saw, I mean, the album cover has a black hand. So even though I don't say Black composers,
Yeah.
you can kind of know. So, Black music. And so what I ended up doing, what I was going to do for that first volume, as well as the next volumes that I'm currently working on. So when Cathy asked me, so your current product, that's one of them. I intended to have several different, I mean, compositions by several different Black composers. It turns out though that when I when I discovered Florence Price and started listening to her music, I so fell in love with it. So that this first volume contains a couple of tracks by Blind Tom, the slave, that I
Uh-huh.
just really liked. But then all the rest of the tracks are Florence Price tracks. Uh,
Oh.
they're all piano, but some of them are actually her arrangements of some spirituals with me and Mark, the violinist, playing on that. Lovely music, lovely music. Anyway, so
Oh,
I'm
wait,
pleased
wait
with
a minute. Is this so you're talking about the recording the recording that came out last year, uh,
correct.
which I can't find online. What is it called?
It's called The Composers.
Composers. Um,
It should be all of the places you can find it. My website, Spotify, Apple Music, yeah, all those things.
all right. So let me just for a second, let me just show this because
There it is. Oh no, and that is actually my interview about why I came up with. Well, actually, yeah, play this. That's
oh,
my. Yeah, that's an interview I did on this very subject. So it'll kind of explain some things. Growing up, playing Chopin,
okay.
Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff, of the Romantic classical heroes that are still my heroes, I had actually never heard of Black classical music composers. I started doing some research and finding out that there are so many amazingly talented Black classical music composers who didn't get the recognition during their lifetimes that they should have. The list just goes on as I'm doing more and more research, from Florence Price, whose music I just love. Her music is very, very rich, emotional, romantic, which just appeals to me just directly. She also was able to incorporate, I will call it, Black musical elements, for lack of a better word, which gives her music an even extra dimension. I've now put her in my top 5 categories of favorite music composers, along with Chopin, along with the white male composers who everyone knows all of these composers by their last names. I mean, Chopin, Beethoven, Mozart, all of their last names, they're revered. These Black classical music composers, for the most part, are unknown. But what I would like to see, specifically with respect to, say, Florence Price and some of these other musicians, I would love for Florence Price to be referred to by her last name, to show that reverence for her, so that she would be referred to as Price. This is what is propelling me and giving me the impetus to just be able to do something to contribute to the movement, to get more recognition and acclaim to these amazing musicians. That's my goal.
Okay. So that's really great. Okay. Yeah.
And so I'm working on the second volume of this, which I will actually I will include another Florence Price piece, a Florence Price major concerto for piano and violin. Mark
Uh-huh.
is going to play. It's a major piece. But I'm also including several other Black composers that I had never heard of. And you guys, I'm out throw out Margaret Bonds, Nathaniel Dent. I mean, there are just a variety of others that who are just amazing, who are finally getting some acclaim. But I mean, it's all so little, so late. It's like I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. But it's a sort of, so Florence, for instance, Florence is now beginning to get some acclaim, and I'm so happy for that. And I'm so happy that I've contributed in my very minor way to some of those efforts. But I mean, I wish that she had gotten the Los Angeles Philharmonic just last year actually did a concert of Florence Price's music. And I'm a member
Wow.
of the LA Philharmonic for decades. I am certain, and if there's anyone in the LA Philharmonic, if they get on this line and they tell me, Gerry, you're mistaken, I am certain that that is the first concert that they ever did Florence Price music of, or any Black composer other than maybe William Grant Still, somewhere along the way. And so I was glad to see that. And there are other orchestras around the country and around the world that are now performing some Florence Price music. So she is beginning to get some acclaim, but there are so many others, and she still has a long way to go to be revered and respected, like Chopin, Rachmaninoff, all of my top folks. But so that's so this next album, next volume, which probably won't be out until I'm way too busy with so many other things. I have to learn from Cathy how do I organize my time. But so it probably won't be out until next year or something.
Yeah, that's really wild. Um, hey, by the way, I have a new record coming out soon of a no net, and I think you'd really enjoy it. We're going to do a pre-CD release party March 16th at Kulak's. Maybe you can come.
Okay,
I think you'd really
okay. What
uh,
day of the week is that? Do you recall offhand? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool. John Leftwich arranged the music and, with arranging ideas for me too, but he really arranged it. And
Hmm.
I think I have one original, but I wrote a lot of lyrics actually, Monk tunes, Schofield tunes.
Mm.
Mara Ruiz, I wrote lyrics for him, and I had written a Vince Mendoza piece that he okayed, for
Okay.
publishing.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Mm.
really beautiful, and a few standards done unusually, and one standard has Hubert Laws soloing on it.
Ah.
It's a really good record. It kind of stretches out over different genres and different age groups, I think. So
Hmm. Hmm.
we're going to do some videos too of it, so it's kind of an exciting project.
Ah. Ah. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Um, Jumping around, I have to going back to my playing for patients at UCLA. I have to say the story because this is actually one of the stories. As I said, every time I did that, something poignant would happen. But this is one story that just really sticks out, and let me know. And as we all know, first of all, it doesn't take much to enliven someone's life. It
Yeah.
could be just you walk by and smile, say, "Oh, hi," or whatever, and you just never know. That could affect someone in such a way you just never know. And
Yeah.
so we should always comport ourselves to thinking about others, and because lots of times we may do something that we don't even think about or whatever, but it affects someone, and we never know about it in such a way that it just makes their day or whatever. Okay, so we'll leave you guys in your audience with this story. So I'm playing at UCLA. Just doing my little thing. Oh, and as a matter of fact, as a quick aside, one day I was playing, and this gentleman came up to me. And well, no, I'll show that story for another later. Another time we'll have to chat. But anyway, so I'm playing, and so patients are sitting around, and so it's just piano. So no one's supposed to be singing, but some people do, but they're not singing. So this one lady was sitting kind of next to the piano, sitting next to me, and she clearly was a patient in the hospital, and she was kind of forlorn and kind of slumped over and it looked very, very sad. So after I finished playing something, and this was during the Christmas season, and I say that for specifically why. And so I looked at her and I said to her, I wanted to enliven her, make her feel better, whatever. So I asked her how she was doing. She said she wasn't doing well, and so she was there for whatever she was there for. And so I asked her, "Is there something that you would like to hear, or whatever?" For whatever reason, I found out she used to sing, but
Oh,
she said that because she has lung problem, all sorts of things. She was in the hospital for, so she hasn't done that at all. So she can't do any of that. And she said she loved doing that, but she can't do it anymore. Okay, but I said to her, and I'm whispering to her kind of, and I said to her, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't I play something? Why don't you sing, quietly, just to me, just be between two of us right here. And she said, no, I don't have any. I've not done this. I can't do this. And I said, well, just you and me. So then she said, oh, okay. So she asked me, so do you know? So this is during the Christmas season. I'm playing Christmas carols. So she asked me, did I know "Oh Holy Night"? I don't know if you know the song. Lovely song. So I said, yes, I do. And I said, so what key? Because I'm thinking, oh God, she's going to ask some key that I don't know it in. And I'm supposed to be a professional player that knows you can change, can modulate, change keys. So I'm not like that at all. But anyway, it turns out, so she said whatever key it was. It was F. And I said, oh yeah, I know. I said, okay, well, I'll play it. And so you can just sing to me. Don't worry about anybody else and just sing to me. Okay. So I'm playing it. And so then she starts singing and then she starts soaring. I mean, she had this operatic voice. She started, and I'm looking at her. The entire hospital stopped during that time because this woman starts singing and her voice was angelic and operatic. I'm crying and I'm thinking I gotta keep playing because I'm accompanying her, and other people just kind of stood there and they were listening. And after the song finished, she collapsed because she didn't have any energy, so she collapsed back down. And I was trying to catch her breath or whatever, and there was silence in the hospital, and then everyone just applauded. It was an amazing, and I even get teared up thinking about that. It was just an amazing moment, and that made her day, that made my day, that made everyone's day. So you just never know the little things that you might do might just really cause joy for other people. So just keep doing what you do and always be mindful of what you do. You never know how people will react.
I love that. Wow, what a great story too. That's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really amazing. Yeah, amazing, amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We've
And
all had
then I have
those
one
experiences.
other quick story about that. Speaking of singers, so again, one day I'm just playing the piano, and you're not supposed to be singing, but then I was playing actually one "God Bless the Child." Okay, so we all know that song. I was playing that, and so then I hear someone in the back of me was actually singing along. You're not supposed to sing, but okay, fine. So I'm playing it, and I thought that gentleman actually has a very good voice, but I didn't see him, but because he's in the back of me, I just keep playing. He's like, he's singing, he's singing. Oh, okay. After I finish the song, he comes up to me. And I look at him. It's oh, what's his first name? Crosby of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. What's his first name?
David.
David, yes, so it's David Crosby. So I look at him, I said, hey, David. And so we chat. He actually was in the hospital. You all may know it's just public knowledge. He had alcohol problems or whatever, doing like whatever. So he was in the hospital for that. So he came in, so he heard the song, and so he knew the words, and so he started singing, and he had a great voice. It's David Crosby, of course. And so we chatted. It was just a lovely little thing. Then he left. But anyway, so I have story every time I performed there for that. There was always something. That was another.
I remember that period actually. I remember you telling me that you were doing that and that you were really enjoying it. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
When was that exactly? Was it a certain year or?
Well, I did it for several years. It was prior to my actually then having to take on this job at KCP, and that was 12 years ago. So this was prior to
Yeah.
because because of the job, I could no longer continue playing every week that I was doing. I just didn't have the time. So this had to have been, say, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so great. Yeah, there's always, I mean, I remember one place I worked at in Westwood, and it was a really busy restaurant, it was super noisy. I
Mm-hmm.
had a band, but I mean, it was cacophonous, you know. We were
Mm-hmm.
kind of, as I remember, we are kind of in the middle of the room. It was really not, your ideal situation. But like you were saying before, you do it for yourself first and you make it good and then that's it basically, right?
Right,
And
right.
this woman had been kind of watching us. Afterwards, she came up, her son was in the hospital and like it was a super super traumatic difficult time for him and her, and she had to get away and just kind of leave the hospital for a minute, get something to eat, and she found her way there and she was totally healed you know
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was, I mean, okay, that's a perfect example. Something you're playing in the middle of this cacophonous gig and you think, oh, nobody's listening, nobody cares. And yeah, no, somebody's listening and somebody cares, and you've just affected somebody and that's going to have ripples. So it's pretty,
Exactly, exactly. And not only musically, but in life. When we just go
yeah.
walking around doing what we do, you
Yeah.
just never know.
I
Yeah.
was speaking to this friend of mine uh, uh, the other day, great musician, and moved here not terribly long ago. Let's see how long ago. I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. And really great musician, unique and kind of brilliant, you know. And he was just saying he has like these special 2 gigs a month where community comes and is involved and really digs it, right? Those just two
Hmm.
gigs. And he was just saying, I have to, I feel at this moment in time, I don't know how old he is, maybe 50-ish, maybe. Anyway, or maybe a little younger. He has a wife and 2 kids, and he's no longer willing to create these road gigs for himself where he takes money to put himself on the road and sleeps on someone's couch and gets the band. He's no longer willing to do that. He wants to build his life here with his family, and and I really believe that he was not bitter about it. He said, I'm happy about this because it's real and I'm building this community thing, and it's important to the community. You know, it's
Hmm.
something that's being built. And
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, and as you said, I forget how it was put, but when your sax player said that about certain people like John Coltrane and people like that, they
Right.
were they were picked to be the stars, the stars in the sky, and but that doesn't make what we do any less valuable if we're not the stars in the sky. We are the material that's underneath. So
Right. Right.
it's important
And
to know that.
it is. And I'm still trying to ingest that. I have not been able to take that and then live with it 100%. I still have, I still need therapy, as I said jokingly. Um, but um, but yeah, but that's absolutely true. So we all, and people, well, I'm sure people have said this to you as well. People say to me, "Oh, I wish I had your talents. I don't have any talents for anything." People say that all the time, but they should understand we all have talents in different things.
Yeah.
Any individual may not have music talent or creative talent, but they may do other things. They may bake, they may organize, they may do whatever they do,
Yeah.
which is a talent as well. And whatever they do that brings some joy, some enjoyment or pleasure to others, that's a talent as well. And so you shouldn't discount the fact just because you, Cathy, are an extremely talented musician or whatever, and I don't have that talent. We all have talent. We just have to recognize that and go forth with that recognition.
Well, that's a good place to end our conversation, I think. I mean, it has been about
About
two.
time you had me interviewed.
Yeah, number 569. It's kind of auspicious. It's not 570. It's
Right.
569. So,
Thank you so much, Kathy.
thanks for being on. It's really cool that I was really looking forward to it. I woke up and I thought, I'm going to interview Gerry Bryant today. It's going to be really fun.
I paid her to say that, everybody. So,
Yeah, this I started, of course, at the beginning of the pandemic and like the first day.
Oh, wow.
And I did 6 days a week for 9 months. I was just thinking I'm just going to do it until I feel like changing it. Then I went down
Mhm.
to 3 days for a while, and then I went down to just archives, and then um, lately I've been sneaking back in with one, maybe two people a week, because I just feel like it. So
Oh,
I'm
good thing. Yeah.
back to doing this, and it's fun. We're next week. I'm going to do. I, I I have to look at his name because some people like yourself, I'm old friends with. I know, and some people are new people like Francesco Crosata, and he's a pianist who lives in San Francisco, and he's an interesting. He's played with a lot of interesting people that we know, a
Hmm.
lot of
Hmm.
people from here. And then the following week, I I was at the NAMM show one day with a friend of mine. He insisted that I come and walk around with him. He's a guitar tech and he connects people, for, you know, sponsorship and stuff like that. So I said, okay, sure. So I didn't realize, but he was friends with a guy named Leif Garrett. I don't know if you know that name.
Live there. Yes. Where do I know that name from?
Well, he back in the day, like way back, he was a
Yeah.
heartthrob rock singer.
Yes. Yes.
And over the years after, he was an actor and still singer, and he's on some reality show, I think. Anyway, the guy and I just clicked. Our
Hmm.
humors were, like he'd say something, I'd say something. It was great. So, so Leif is going to come over actually and do it here, which I've done several times. But some people like a little, they want to be here. So he's coming over, and that's March 4th.
Okay.
So on the Mondays I've been doing it, and yeah, I'm just going to continue doing that for a while. Looks like Mondays, people are liking Mondays, but yeah, so kind of back to doing it, but there'll never be another 569.
Well, let me just say thank you, Kathy. Actually, I am honored, pleased, humbled, and all that to be on. And any of the people in your audience, if you ever have a question of me or whatever, my email address is on my website. Ask me. I mean, that's what I'm. That's what I do. Is I try to help people. So, and thanks, and Kathy is the hardest working woman in the business. Remember that.
I have a little crown here. Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Kat.
Have a great day, and
You too.
thanks
Take
for
care,
being on for
everybody.
2 hours. Thanks everybody for coming. See you next week, maybe. Bye.